All right, in this explainer, we are pulling back the curtain on a part of every company that everyone deals with, but let's be honest, few people really understand. Human resources. We're going to be using some incredibly sharp insights from the channel Donald versus System to decode the true role HR plays in the corporate machine.
So let's start with the most basic question, right? Who does HR actually work for? Now, you probably think you know the answer to that, but I'm willing to bet the reality of how the system is set up might just surprise you.
You see, most of us are kind of taught to expect HR to be our advocate, a neutral party that's there to help us out. But the reality of their role? It's fundamentally different. As we're about to see, HR's main function isn't to protect you, it's to protect the company from you.
Let's dig into HR's true purpose. Because if you want to navigate your career safely, you really have to stop seeing HR as some kind of guidance counselor. You need to start seeing them for what they actually are, the company's first line of defense.
This right here, this is their primary mission. Every single policy, every training seminar, every conversation you have with them is viewed through the lens of risk. HR's absolute #1 priority is the legal and financial health of the company. That means your personal well-being only becomes a factor when it looks like it might become a liability for the organization.
So how does this all play out in the real world? Let's look at some truths from the trenches. And these are drawn from some really interesting case studies by Donald versus the System that show the machine in action.
So picture this scenario. A huge project goes completely off the rails. It's a total mess. And when you try to figure out, okay, who actually approved this thing, accountability just evaporates. Poof, gone. What happens is you get this perfect circle of blame. The project manager points to the VP blames the sales team points a finger at engineering, and where does engineering point? Right back at the project manager. It's a completely closed loop, and it's designed so that the blame never, ever has to land in one place.
And this really gets to the core principle. The system itself, often built with HR's guidance, is specifically designed to diffuse individual responsibility. It's not about finding the truth of what happened. It's about protecting the management structure from ever being at fault.
Or here's another one that might sound familiar. Your whole department is just completely buried in work. You're overwhelmed. And then, out of nowhere, leadership announces some big new strategy, and it makes zero sense. It totally conflicts with the last strategy. And what happens? Nothing. Nobody has the energy to push back. This is such a critical insight into how the system works. When people are too swamped just trying to keep their heads above water, they don't have the bandwidth to challenge new ideas. So questionable strategies just sail right on through. That feeling of being constantly overwhelmed, it's not a bug. It is a feature. It's an incredibly effective tool for control that keeps dissent quiet.
And finally, let's talk about the actual language the system uses. You go to your manager with a legitimate problem, like you're burning out because the team is understaffed, and you get a response just like this one. It's a classic bit of corporate judo.
You have to understand, this is basically a script. And guess who often writes the script? HR. They literally train managers to reframe big systemic problems as individual personal challenges. So the company's problem of understaffing suddenly becomes your prioritization opportunity. And just like that, the burden is officially shifted from them to you.
So, okay, we've kind of mapped out how the system defends itself. Now, the big question is, how do you build a new playbook to protect yourself?
Look, this isn't about being paranoid, it's about being strategic. You have to build a solid case for yourself. That means you document everything in writing, create that paper trail, stick to objective facts, not subjective feelings, and you always reference specific company policies. Don't go to HR for emotional validation. They're not there for that. Go with the proposed solution that fixes your problem but also helps the company reduce its risk. That is the language the system understands.
So what's the big takeaway here? How do you put all these pieces together so you can see the whole system for what it is?
Honestly, the best way to think about it is this. HR is the company's operating system. Its prime directive is just to keep the machine running smoothly, with as little risk as possible. Once you really get that, once you understand you're not interacting with a person so much as a function of the system, you can stop taking things so personally, and you can start engaging on their terms.
And that leaves us with the most important question of all. Now that the system is visible, what are you going to do differently to navigate it? Thank you for joining this explainer.